So as promised, we're going to have a look at this diesel heater, which I've just got for the van. It's a smaller type, so it should go and suit my purposes well. Like with all of them, we're going to go through and do some upgrades to it before we actually put it in service. So part of that's going to be changing the fuel lines for the hard nylon style, and I bought a kit for that. I'm also going to be sound deadening the inside of the chassis a little bit to help with noise, and possibly on the pump as well, depending on how that's mounted. We'll have a look at that in a second. I've got a box of Jubilee clips to replace any Jubilee clips that come with the kit because they're traditionally not very good. Just a few basic tools really, so a couple of Stanley knives, wire strippers, side cutters, screwdrivers. I've got a pack of small socket set there, and I've got some conduit and some three-way flex to extend the cable from the controller. One thing I didn't have there on my list is, you can see I've got a basic fuel line upgrade kit, sort of standard thing you get on Amazon or eBay for around £10. So that's what we'll be doing internally. Right, so this one's slightly different. There's no clasps on the side. It seems to be screws all the way around. I shall change the camera around and get the screws off, and let's have a look. Okay, first job is to get these screws out from all the way around. Try and do this one-handed. There looks to be 12 screws in total. So I'll whiz these out, lift the cover off. I'll come back to you in a moment. Right, so that's all the screws out now, all 12, and I've just spun the cap off the fuel tank as well to clear it. I think it's like most of them, when you take them apart, it's all kind of very flimsy, but we pop the lid off and have a quick look around. So it all looks pretty standard fare from any of these style of heater. It says it's a 5 kilowatt one, but I got to believe most of them are all the same. I'm just going to turn it around so we can see it inside. Okay, with those 12 screws removed and the top off the fuel tank, you'll see it's pretty much standard fare for these units. You can see the squidgy green fuel pipe there, which we'll be replacing. And like with most of them, once you get the cover off, everything's a bit flimsy. Fuel tank, like I said, it's just all held in place by the case basically. It doesn't look too bad. It's rated at 5 kilowatts, but I think all of them are pretty much the same. So I think the first job we'll do is maybe look at the inside of the case itself and try to add some sound deadening and stuff into there. The actual pump is in a vertical position and looks like it's got a rubber mount. So we'll see if we can improve, maybe give that some more isolation. But first job, yeah, we'll insulate the inside of the case first. So the inside of the case there is pretty basic. It's just 2 bolts where the handle comes through at the top. So what I'm going to be using for this are these closed cell foam pads, sort of thing you use for speaker dampening inside of doors, etc, etc. So I'm going to cut them down with a pair of scissors, just the right size. So I'm going to make sure I don't cover up any of these standard holes that are supposed to be here. So I'll cut them down to size and put them in, and hopefully that should give us a bit more sound insulation when the unit is running. Okay, so I've got that cut and stuck on there. You can see the insulation panels in there. Hopefully they'll provide a bit of sound dampening. You never know. You've noticed I've stayed away from the extreme edges here, just so I don't impede the case going back on. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure how much difference this will make. Hopefully it will dampen the noise down a little bit. I've got some offcuts left over, bits and bobs, and I'll probably use those to try and dampen the pump slightly a bit more, but we'll get to that in a minute. Right, so inspecting the cable that leads to the LCD panel at the front, you can see it just pokes through the top of the unit and goes out. Now I want to extend that cable because I'd like to pass this through into the sort of living area away from the actual unit itself. So looking at it, I think the best thing to do, see there's this big plug here, is to actually cut the connector this side, possibly halfway, and then use some 3-core cable just to extend that out. That will give me, you know, 1.5 meters or so away from the unit. It'll give me a few more options with mounting the actual LCD panel in the way I want to. So I think that's probably going to be the way to do it. So I'm going to cut that off now and make a join, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so I found some standard 3-core flex that I wasn't using up in the garage. What I've done is strip away the insulation, so I'm just left with the conductor wires. Now the colours are slightly different to the plug one, but that's not going to be a problem. They're pretty much the same. Black is the earth on the pump thing. When I use the actual earth coloured cable, or UK earth coloured cable for that. So here's the plug, as I said. I fed it back through, and I'm going to cut it about in the middle and then strip each end and then extend that wire. You see the wires there, red, black and blue from the pump side. I've now chopped that off. So I'm just going to trim these up, ready. So those 3 ready to go. And we're just going to do the same on the control panel wires, obviously the corresponding colours. So I'll just snip them up and then we'll move to the next stage. And we'll also be stripping the 3-core flex that I removed from the insulation earlier. And then we'll be ready to go. So now we've got the wire all separated and trimmed, ready to be lengthened. You could use anything you like here at this point, but I'm going to be using these single strand Wago connectors. They're inline. They just give you a really secure connection on there. Like I said, you could use SMA out's bullet connectors, crimps, or you could resolder them. But I'm going to use these. The fact that you're able to disconnect them really easily is a bonus. And the other thing is, actually, once you've spaced in or allowed for the distance of the actual inline connector, I'm probably going to get another 20 centimeters or so of actual cable length because of that. So I'm going to join on those up, and I'll show you that in a moment. Right, so I've made myself a little patch loom there out of the 3-core flex. Just wrapped it in insulation tape to protect it. Now in my installation, I'm going to be unscrewing this mounting panel and mounting this in the van with a hole behind it to run these cables through that wall and then into my long cable. So I won't be keeping any of the extended cable inside of the chassis. But I'm going to put it all back together and continuity test it, so just to make sure I haven't made any mistakes and it's all going to work. But when it comes time to installation, I'll be able to pop these Wagos out, drill a hole for the faceplate, pass the wires through, and then do the install properly, and it all should be good. So I've passed the new loom through the front of the unit. As you can see, giving myself a tail there to connect back to the standard 3-pin connector for the LCD panel. So what I'm going to do now, I just put some Wagos on the end. If you've not used Wagos before, you flip up the latches, and then these are in line, so slide that over the end of the cable, make sure that's down securely, and actually you can pull pretty hard on that, that's not going anywhere. So just do that with the other wires a moment. I said all the way in, latch down tight, that's not going anywhere. It always pays with these to have a little bit of length exposed in the conductor, just so they grip nice and tight. And then just pop the third one in. Excellent. And they see the back there, you don't want any conductor exposed from the back there. But these grip on really tight, you can pull these quite hard and they won't come off. So what I'll do now is connect up the other piece back to where we were, so the bit I cut off earlier on, to connect back to the unit. So the colours are different, but what we're going to go with is basically like a standard UK arrangement. So we're going to go the blue to the blue, same thing again, Flip it down. That connection is nice and solid. The red, I think I'd have a bit more wire exposed for that one. So I'll just do that one moment. Get the tool. That's better. I'll just give them a twist as well to make sure. So we're going to go red to brown. So let's get another twist. Insert in again. That's latched in now. And the black on here will go to the UK earth coloured wire. As I said earlier, so do that quick twist. Oh, flip up the lever. Insert to the back of the connector. Clamp shut. Those are super solid now. I'll probably tape these to stop them making noise inside the cabinet in a minute. But before all that, I need to do the other end. And then we need to continuity test. Okay, definitely not the prettiest in the world, but what I've used there is the little detent in the fuel tank, and just popped the Wagos into that hole and just secured it with some tape. I don't want those rattling against the side of the case and making an unseemly noise. I mean, they're not going to fail or go wrong, but I just don't want to make any more noises because I'm trying to quieten it down. And the original connector, as I said, I've just tucked back in just under the pump there, so well clear of where the actual casing is going to come. So now I've got a nice long cable coming out of the front of the unit and all the way here. So all that remains is I need to connect up the actual face panel again, and it should hopefully work. And just before wrapping these up for the final time, I forgot to film me doing the continuity test, which is just a test you can do with your multimeter. If you look it up, you should be able to see it. But now you can see, if I take it back to the beginning, the actual original plug is in behind the pump, behind the fuel tank now, out the way. Here's my 3 Wagos. I used to use this 3-core flex to extend that around. That's a nice and snug next to the tank, so hopefully it won't rattle and bang next to it. And if you come out now, so you come out the front of the unit, follow the flex down, and I'm about to tape these all up so they're not exposed anymore, down to the unit. So that gives me quite a distance to be able to mount the unit, mount the LCD display away from the unit where I want it to. So I'll just wrap up those final bits of the Wago there, and that'll be that part done. Okay, so now we're going to turn our attention to the fuel line. It's got the standard issue Chinese diesel heater, kind of squishy green plastic one. I've just unplugged the electrical connector for the pump just to give me better access to that. And this pipe runs down the unit underneath, and I'll flip over in a minute and show you, but that's where the inlet, the fuel inlet, ends up. So what we're going to do is replace that with a nylon kit with some push-on rubber hoses and some proper clamps. So I'll just get that stripped off, and then we'll do that. I've got the unit on its side now. I've taken this pipe from the top of the pump you see me do a minute ago, and it follows in underneath through there and into the fuel inlet at the bottom. So it's quite a short piece of pipe. It should be pretty easy to do. So I'll whip that off and then replace it. As I mentioned, I'm using one of these upgrade kits you can get from eBay or Amazon for about £9–10. There's a filter in there as well, which I'm going to pop in as well. So just push this on just to see where we're going. I've got a nice big gap here, which I think it might be where I install the fuel filter. So I'm going to come up through the bracket down here where it was going before and have the fuel filter in this area. I'm just pushing these poly pipes into the rubber pipes. It's quite tight, so a little bit of soap or something, very liquid, or dishwasher or whatever, something slightly slippery, should help you get those in place. Okay, in summary, so just to sum up what we've done, I've replaced the green fuel hose you see there, put a loop in there. It bends a little tight, but I think it's okay. I've added the addition of the fuel filter in beside the burner there. If you notice, I've just added some offcuts of that sound insulation there, just to stop those pipes tapping against any of those clips tapping against anything. And this is the top fuel pipe going over to the fuel pump. Now this will just sit in there nicely when the lid is back on. Okay, just in summary, we'll just whip over what we did. It's all back together now. So we've added some insulation and some sound deadening into the inside of the cabinet. We've also rerun the fuel line with a stiffer nylon fuel line from a fuel line kit. We've extended out the cable on the LCD panel, which, as you can see, gives us quite a bit more length on that. Now, I'm not actually putting this in and firing it up at the moment. I'll do that follow-up when I actually do that. The casing was a little bit snug to get back on with the sound deadening on. However, I think it's going to be worth it. But I'll run it up, give it a try and see how we go. But yeah, hopefully that was it until there's an update one. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Hello everyone. Today we are going to be doing part 2 of the diesel heater testing with a quiet pump. Let's see if that modification makes the heater quieter, and then we'll draw some conclusions at the end. So let's get to it. This is the packaging for the pump that arrived. Ordered it from AliExpress. So just going around to see if any of those model numbers might mean anything to anyone if they were going to order one themselves. I can always put some stills up of that if required. But this is how the pump actually looks. You'll see the body of it is actually quite a bit bigger, which I'll show you in a second. So we're back with the heater itself. Now, I've already actually fitted the pump. Just going to draw in close so you can hopefully see it. I'll get the model number in a second. One thing that did stand out, you'll see that I've now got a definitive loop of fuel pipe up here. The pump itself, the body of the pump, is much larger. I'll just bring in the original part that came with the heater, and I'll try and get in a bit closer to this one just so you can see. The actual body of it is quite a bit longer, so for this test it's going to be fine. We'll just bend that pipe into place. If it's going to stay on there, I think I will shorten this poly pipe on top. So as you can see, it's all fitted in the same place, same electrical connector, nothing's different on there. So all that remains really is to pop the lid back on, make it a fair test, and get everything going. Now, the Mercedes is, sorry to say, it's looking a bit sorry for itself at the moment. It needs a good clean. I need to get on doing that project. I've got lots of bits and pieces to do, new brakes, some suspension arms, lots of other bits and pieces. So we'll get onto that soon, I promise, but let's carry on with the video. So, we're moving on. We've put the lid back on, secured it all the way around with the screws. Now, it was a bit snugger than it has been due to that pipe that I mentioned earlier. I think if I'm going to actually use this pump in there full time, I'm going to have to make some changes to the length of those poly pipes just to make it fit a bit better. But I have got the lid back on. The unit's powered up, as you can see, and I'm powering the unit off the Mercedes battery for the time being so we can do this test. And I imagine I'm going to have to re-prime this because it's a fresh pump, so I'll push the auto prime button and see what happens. Well, interestingly, I think the prime noise is slightly quieter than it was. We'll try and start it up. The heater itself is running. So we'll let it warm itself up, and then we'll see what it's like when it's running, producing heat, and what noise it makes. So the burner is now started, so it will start to produce heat in a minute. We'll open the garage door to get the exhaust out. I have to say, in warming up, initially it doesn't seem any different to the original pump, to be honest. But we'll see what it's like when it actually starts producing heat. As we've seen with the original pump, seems to quieten down as it gets up to speed. Now we'll let it start producing heat properly in the same way as the other one did, and we'll see if it actually makes any difference. Okay, we're fully up to speed now. I'm going to come and stand in the similar position I did before so you can hear the pump noise. It's actually pretty low in comparison to the actual fan noise. It is there. I'm not sure there's a big advantage between the two, if I'm honest, at this stage. I mean, they all seem to quieten down when they're up and running. They've got plenty of heat coming out from the front of the thing. One thing I have noticed a difference. In the last video, if you've watched it, you'll see that at the beginning I was pluming smoke everywhere. Now that could have been me over-priming the system, quite possibly. And it did settle down, but this barely smoked at all. So I've got the garage door open so don't worry about fumes. But yeah, that's just something I've noticed. Now whether that could well be me, so that might be misleading. So I'll have one more walk around. So, conclusions. I've got to say, with testing, I don't think it's really worth buying the quieter pump. I think the modifications we made the existing pump quieter itself. I didn't really notice any major difference. You might be able to tell that on the video itself. So, all in all, I would say no. It's probably handy to have a spare pump, should you need one, but I think they're easily obtainable anyway. However, that's about it. I think the modifications worked. The quieter pump, not so much, is pretty much my conclusion. But thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Right, got to get this diesel heater installed, and it's urgent. You'll see why later on in the video. Let's roll the intro. So in this area, this is where the spare wheel should live. If it's in place with its bracketry and everything else. What I'm going to try and do, turn the camera slightly, is get the heater pipes to come down in this area in between the edge of the wheel arch and the inside of the chassis rail. This area, which is where the diesel heater is going to go, in this here area where the electrics and everything else lives. Now I've measured and I want to need to be able to come 110 from this wheel arch to stay inside of the panel that I've showed on the different part of the video. So as long as we can come across this far, I should stay away from the chassis rail that's underneath, plus not interfere further over this side where the spare wheel hole is. I'll just tape some masking tape around two critical dimensions. The tape is 110 out from the edge of the wheel arch across there, and that's where I want the back of the unit to be. And the tape going forward, that's to give me my line. On this line of masking tape, the other side is where the double seam starts with the chassis rail, so I know my holes need to be in this area. I just need to figure out exactly where they're going to be. And hopefully you can see the test drill just coming down through in pretty much the correct place, so we're looking good. Okay, so we've got two holes spaced now. It's going to be the start of our exhaust and intake holes. Measured them off, so they should be in the right place. They come down underneath the van as I showed you earlier. So what I'm going to do now is we've got a hole saw set. Now the intake and the exhaust hose are 1 inch, so we're going to go over that and remove some extra wood and floor material away from that just to manage the heat, but we're going to hole saw down to the metal, and then we're going to stop, take that out, and then make the holes for the actual pipes themselves. Okay, hole number 2. I've got 2 holes down to the van floor, so I'm going to line them up, widen them out enough for the exhaust pipes and the intake pipes to go down through them. Alright, so here is a bit of a sweep and a tidy up now, so now it's time to test fit the unit itself and go from there, seal up the rest of the gaps with some heat-proof silicone. It's getting dark now, so I might have to carry on tomorrow, but it's down in the holes. Sorry, these pipes are down through the holes. I'm trying to get in there. I don't know if you can be able to see them, but it fits through. I'll show you from underneath the van in a second. So test fit, it all seems to sit where I wanted it to, so that's good news. I hope you can see that. There's exhaust coming out there and the intake quite neatly down through the bottom of the van. Right, so we're back again after finished up last night. I've made some inserts, like fire inserts, for the holes here to pass the pipes down through. They'll be siliconed in. So what I'm going to do is going to just prep that up a minute. They're just made on the lathe out of tube stock and just giving a bit of coat of high heat paint, and then we'll get on to that. Forgot to say, put some reflective tape on there as well, just to dissipate that. So we'll get those inserts siliconed in now. Right, so we'll just silicone up these pipes, or these little heat shields, and then we'll just push them down into the holes. They sit right at the bottom of the van floor. That should give us the protection that we need there. That's the second one going in now. You can see they finish up flush with the top of the van floor, which was what I was after. So we'll just push this one down and in the hole, and just give that a wipe round with the silicone. All done. Okay, next job, get the heater and feed it down through the holes. Now it's going to be difficult to do one-handed, so I might do that, not film that, and just show you when I get there. Okay, unit's in. It was a bit awkward, but we got there in the end. So the pipes are passing through under the van. I just tucked them out of the way for a second. I need to get the van up in the air to secure the clips and put the exhaust on, or the muffler on, should I say, and clamp that all up. As you can probably tell, it's getting dark, so that'll be it for today while the silicone dries. Okay, so exhaust is coming down through. You can see now it's P-clipped to the inside the chassis rail, and we're just going to make up the bracket for the rear muffler. Then we'll move on to the intake. Got the hole there, if you can see, to mount the back box, and we're going to space it with a rubber mount. So I'm going to drill that out now. So that's there, ready to go on. Bit of silicone there just to seal it up. We've made a little rubber mount there out of as a bung port, really. You can get a pack of them just to block it off vacuum pipes and stuff. That will space it away from the chassis at the top, and should make it not vibrate when you're driving around. So let's get that put in. Right, thanks to Brother Rich, we've got those both mounted up now. Used a spacer on a P-clip to go up through the floor for the air intake. And they're both running the same direction, but there's a good gap between the two. Hopefully you can see that. So I don't think there's going to be too much heat transfer there. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's all looking good. It's all clear of anything. So now the job is to silicone up the holes that come through the floor of the van, just to make sure we don't get any back exhaust emissions. Right, so that's all in place. I mean, look like we've gone absolutely mental with the silicone, but we'll clean all this up. But because we've got some gaps to fill there, we want to put this, lag it on, let it dry, and then we'll clean it all off afterwards, just to tidy it up a little bit, and maybe just give it a coat of black or something like that, just to, it looks a bit of a mess at the moment, but like I said, it's important that we fill the gaps. We definitely don't want any exhaust gas being able to come back up into the cabin. Okay, last few bits, the install. This is a couple days later. You can see the power and ground cables. I don't have a spare switch at the moment, so it's going into a blade fuse holder with a fuse on. I'll put a switch in line with that so I can isolate it if I need to. Currently I could just pull the fuse out if required. Now the bit you didn't see was me installing the outlet. It's getting a bit dark in here, but I'll show you. So it runs to the left hand side of the battery down to the front of the unit. All you missed there was me drilling a hole, basically, and the length, the extended length, if you remember me doing that in the install video for the control panel around the front. So we'll go around the front, I'll show you the control panel, and then perhaps we'll do a test, see how quick it brings the van up to temperature. By the way, everyone, if you've missed the first 3 videos actually on the modification testing of the diesel heater, go to the channel page on the playlist. You'll find them there. I'll also link them in the description below. So why wasn't this quite what I thought? Well, unexpectedly, I had to go and collect my son from where he lived because he wanted to move back home into the family home with us. So I had to go and collect him and all his stuff. Now, he's roughly an 8-hour drive from where we live, and that meant an overnight stay. And now it was already going to cost about £200 UK in fuel to get there and back, which is quite a lot of money at the end of January. It's just after Christmas, money's tight for everyone, and you can't really drive 8 hours either way back to back in all one time. So I had to stay over somewhere. Now, this is what the van is for, partly, but maybe not at the end of January. So I stayed overnight using my Britstops membership. So I'm sure most people have heard of it. It's a UK thing. I think there's a similar thing in America. But basically, it's a subscription service that allows you to stay over at certain pubs, farm shops, and other car parking areas on private land, usually for one night, free of charge. And it's pretty useful, especially when you're out and about. Now, normally you wouldn't necessarily be doing that in late January when it's quite cold, but like I said, fuel is expensive in the UK, and I was going to spend £200 plus on fuel to get to my son and all his things and come back. So I didn't want to book a hotel overnight, which would have been 50, 60, 70 pounds per night depending on where I stayed. So that was the option. But with that being late January, as I've already said, temperatures are going to be pretty cold. So I had to bring forward the install of the diesel heater, basically, which is why it's a little bit more, rushed in places and perhaps not 100% finished. But the good news is it installed, it worked, it was very effective. I had a comfortable night's sleep, and I couldn't be more pleased with the outcome of that. And you'll see then in the testing shortly, it works damn well, I think. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. How long does it take to heat a medium wheelbase van with a 5 kilowatt diesel heater up to 18 degrees? I don't know, let's find out. Let's start the clock. Fire up that heater. And we're going to do this from cold. The heater's not been run at all. You see it was on H2, and to be fair, I'm going to set it at heat setting 3, which is about the middle setting. I think there's 6 altogether. So we'll pop back in a few minutes and see where we are. Coming up for 2 minutes in, the pump has just started pumping. I'll put that there so you can perhaps pick that up off the microphone. Here's the air outlet down here. So the noise not too bad at the moment. Check back again in a couple of minutes. Almost 7 minutes on the clock. Hot air pumping out the vent big time. Still only showing 12 degrees on the meter, but it feels physically warmer in here already. So I expect that to go up shortly. We'll keep going. Hi everyone, if you're enjoying the video, please like and subscribe by clicking the buttons below. This test is part of a larger video which I've done about installing. I've got a whole series about it, so if you want to find out about that, it's in the description below. Thanks for watching. 16 minutes in, no, nearly 17 minutes, and we're at 15 on the clock. But as I was saying earlier, it feels much warmer in the van already, so pretty good going. 22:25 on the clock, and we're at 17 degrees. Pretty much there. Still blowing out nice and hot air. Don't forget, the heater itself is on temperature 3. Coming up for 23 minutes. We're nearly there. 26, 23, 18 degrees. That's pretty good, I reckon. This is a 5 kilowatt unit. It's 2 degrees outside. The van is 18 degrees, boiling hot. I've got my hat on and I'm absolutely roasting. What a result. So 18 degrees in the van, 26 minutes on heat setting 3 on the heater. So you could see in the testing video, the conclusion of that, I was pretty happy with the performance of the heater all round. The modifications we made it quieter. I think it's perfectly acceptable in there. Performance was great. Didn't need an 8 kilowatt for my size of van. All in all, a bit of a result. Any questions or anything, comment down below. Like I said, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.